Since 1980, we have taken many initiatives to improve our schools with single-session schools, more and better trained teachers, pastoral care, and greater autonomy for schools to run their own operations. We can give pupils more individual attention. Singapore parents who emigrate for the sake of their children's future may in fact find that they will be denying their children the educational opportunities which we can now make available because of our strong financial position and investment in human and physical infrastructure. He was Minister for Finance, so he knows what he's talking about when he talks about our strong financial position. I'll quote now Goh Chok Tong. Singapore is likely to enjoy faster economic growth than Australia, US and Canada in the next 10 years. This means faster real income growth, higher standard of living, more travel overseas. Singaporeans who have emigrated will have fewer opportunities to travel as extensively as Singaporeans here. I think that's a point. You can visit your friend, but he will not be able to visit you. He hasn't got the dough. We maximize Singaporeans' potential. We will be moving into single-session secondary schools and upgrading primary schools. The average will not have the same opportunities. The average student in Singapore who emigrates will not have the same opportunities to advance himself as the average here. We emphasize human resource development. He goes on to add that ASEAN has proven successful in fostering regional stability. I give you Jayakumar. He has relatives who have emigrated to Australia. He meets them from time to time, so he knows what life is about when they emigrate. Marrying Asians becomes a problem because there are small pockets. You are Asians in a white community. Their children become so different and alienated. They have emigrated for their children's sake, but they have grown up totally different, like the whites. But the crucial admission, you talk frankly to your brothers and your sisters. You do not and cannot feel really at home there. That's the crux of the matter. I'm not saying they are good, they are bad. It's human beings are like that. You tend to like your own kind. If you are an Asian in a white society, or even you are an Asian in an African society, the Indians in Africa have a very tough time. And they get massacred from time to time. But you know, one problem I face is that I really don't understand all this. I mean, I understand this as concepts, but emotionally I don't follow this argument because my generation had a different outlook on life. I spent 4 years in England. I didn't come back to Singapore at all because by then, or at that time, it was a vast sum of money to come back by air, which would have taken about 7-8 days hopping, or by sea, 2.5 weeks. So I stayed there for 4 years. I never belonged. I was interested. I was sometimes uncomfortable. Most times fairly well off because as a student you are buffered from the frictions of day-to-day life. So to understand this younger generation, I tapped a little panel, a brains trust of my own. Because these are ministers telling me, what does the average person who rubs shoulders with his friends, what do they say? I met 3. 2 men, 1 woman. Young, and the men were in their very early 30s. So they understand. This is the generation that's being recruited. At the end of the discussion, I said, right. I showed them what the minister's views are. I tested them out. I said, give me a short note. What's your assessment? I'll read you an extract from one of them, but let me tell you that this kind of Singaporean is going to make Singapore succeed. First, he said to me, please make sure that the government says it does care about keeping Singaporeans here. The recruitment of foreign talent is an ongoing exercise to propel the country to greater heights. But it is not a solution to the problem of emigration. A different one altogether. To him, explain to Singaporeans that the newcomers are not getting a free ride on what Singapore citizens have built up all these years. That's him. He served his national service 2.5 years. Yes, he was a scholar abroad in Cambridge. But he points out, Singapore is not a hotel where people come and go. Then he says, all reasons given by the ministers for staying are materialistic, rational calculations. That might be a realistic reflection of the situation. But speaking for myself, the single most important reason is that Singapore is my place. It is something I call mine. Never mind the many constraints. I never expected this quiet, very prosaic, scholarly type with glasses had passion. But to build a country, you need passion. If you just do your sums, plus, minuses, credit, debit, you are a washout. When we fought in 1962-63 against the communists, when we went through hell in 1963-65, many people thought we were crazy. We could lead peaceful, quiet lives. Why were we doing this? It was an act of conviction. This is my country. This is my life. This is my people. You will trample over us, over our dead bodies. We dug our toes in, we built a nation. Not quite. 1/3 of the way. How long will it last? Will it travel the whole way? Another 30, 40, 50 years? My generation won't see it through, so again, I quote a younger generation. And I quote George Yeo. He's a thinker, not given to flights of fancy. He said, competition amongst nations, shifting from the military to the economic. Naked military aggression to gain territory is no longer acceptable. Whether it is USSR in Afghanistan, Vietnam in Cambodia, South Africa in Namibia, or Israel in the West Bank. In parallel, national economies are increasingly independent, which makes international cooperation more important. This means that being small may not be so crippling a disadvantage after all. That's his perception. He does not think we are crippled by our size, given the new international environment. In the next century, the action in the next century will be in East Asia. China has suffered a setback. But over the next 10, 20 years, East Asia will be the growth center of the world. ASEAN has done well. After a long time, Asians are again proud to be Asians. And this is a sure indication of the way the world is moving. Well, we have to make the future from what we have. And it is in this context that I want you to see why we are trying and what we should do to secure a future for those already here and those who will be born. Now, we've made this offer for 25,000 Hong Kong workers. Blue collar, white collar. But remember first, the offer is for those who have got 5 O levels, or poly or NTC 3, or a secondary school education plus 1,500 salary. In other words, the cutoff point is not a work permit holder, but an employment pass. We have over 100,000 work permit holders. We have only some 15 or 16,000 employment pass holders. That's the quality we are looking for. That's the kind of person that will make Singapore a better place. It's not, of course, it's a gesture to people in distress, but let's not make too much of it. It is in our economic and social and political interest, or we would not have done so. This is in Singapore's interest. We have had the first 2,000 plus applicants analyzed. We took 200 and did a sample analysis. Their family size is small, 2.8. Ours who emigrated, 2.5. There's contemplating coming here sometime, 2.8. Hard-working, resourceful, competitive. But are they superior? I don't think so. I think it is the system that made them superior workers. There is no subsidy in the government system, whether it's health, education, or housing. Is everyone self-reliant? There's also no need for national solidarity because the British never attempted to create a community or a nation. They can't. There'll be trouble with China. There's no defense, no foreign affairs, never any collecting of votes. So, it's a unique society. Of course, it's got its political disadvantages. I mean, economically, it is an immense advantage to be like that because you are adaptable, you are flexible, you can do things quickly, adjust. Any condition in the world, the human being, the worker has to respond to the market. But when they faced a political problem, 1997, they did not have that political cohesion and leadership to take their future into their own hands and begin to talk with leaders in China. They were just individuals. Who sets the pace of the discussion? A whole host of foreigners. British MPs, British correspondents, American correspondents based in Hong Kong. Everybody theorizes. It's their future. But there isn't that common cohesion to see whether they can get a better future if they can deal direct. Not possible. Too late in the day to start building this net within the community. That's the difference with Singapore. Our policies are constrained, are conscribed because we have this larger whole. Whatever we want to do, first question is, does this break national unity? Just like the 25,000. If it's going to break national unity, it's not worth it. Careful consideration went into it. We are faced with a situation where if we don't move, we are stupid. As one of my brains trust panel said, it's like as if you're running a newspaper in Singapore and another newspaper is closing and you don't pick up the staff. It's just plain stupid. But we would not have done it if it is going to break up our solidarity. I don't think it will. I don't think it needs to. But there will be this initial unhappiness. Our stand is the present racial balance will be maintained. And it's a crucial stand. We took straw polls. Also feedback. It's as expected. Chinese, clear majority in favor. Malays, clear majority unhappy. Indians, bigger majority against and unhappy. I can't understand it, but anyway, they feel even more strongly about this than the Malays. Although they haven't said very much in the newspapers. Let's approach this in a rational way. We can hide it, as we would have had to do in the old days. and not discuss it, I think that's a minus. We are growing up, let's talk to each other as adults. Racial biases, racial preferences, they are not going to go away. Let's not pretend. We are all prisoners of our own instincts. And the first instinct in man is to identify with somebody who looks like him. You have read this little kite flying. What's wrong with a shifting ratio? Why not 50-50? Mr. Chiam was said in Parliament, why not 1/3, 1/3, 1/3? Let me tell you what I would think if I were an Indian. Why not 76% Indians, 15% Malays, and 7% Chinese? That's better still. But you know, this is the real world. Let's just maintain status quo. And we have to maintain it, or there will be a shift in the economy, in both the economic performance and the political backdrop which makes that economic performance possible. You study the figures and you will know that there will be significant differences in the economy of Singapore if the ratio were transposed. You look at the educational levels of performance, it's got to do with culture, nature, and so many other factors. But year after year, this is the end result. Let's leave well alone. The formula has worked. Keep it. And of course, the founder members are all of us, whether we are Indians, Chinese, or Malays. I give an assurance to everybody, they will be absorbed in a way which will make them Singaporeans in the end. Must be, because the numbers are small. 2.8 times 25,000. One Queenstown of the old days, but spread over 15 estates. There's a committee, several ministries involved, including agencies like EDB, HDB, PIPS, SIMS, PIPS, the Professional Information and Placement Services, SIMS, Social Integration Management Services. These are groups that have been already at work, absorbing the 100 that we recruit every year from abroad. Over this committee will preside a committee of ministers and MPs of all races. So everybody has an overview of the total picture. George Yeo is the chairman. I think Ma Bao Tan, one other, and they are co-opting at least one Malay MP and one Indian MP. So everybody can see the figures. There's nothing clandestine about this. What I'd like to say is all Singaporeans will gain, or we would not have done this. Nobody will lose out in his efforts to climb up our social ladder. The integration of this input will be a boost to our economy. It will increase our national stake. And they are coming in as PRs. They are not coming in as citizens. In other words, no subsidies, housing or whatever, including the Goh Chok Tong's refurbishing of the HDB program. That is meant for citizens, and many other things. But, in fairness, those who acquire citizenship intend to stay, then they join our ranks. That way, we will progress. Now, if you will allow